Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time, except for this time period, because we are doing a no rules.
We're just doing whatever we want.
We're doing whatever we want.
Remember how all these months we've been talking about, like, oh, we created this really good schedule and we really like it. Lies, because we just threw that out the window.
I mean, but we also like have a great schedule. It's amazing. It's just going to start in the new year for the new season. So we kind of were just
through the end of the year. We were like, do we start a new season or do we go back and do a little Murderbot and do some fun stuff?
Like the thing is we usually do kind of a no rules like December where it's just like, oh, we're like here for a good time, not a long time. And so it was a weird thing where we were like, well, we're covering Murderbot. Like we could cover a book of a like series and then take a 2-month break. Like,
it just didn't make sense, honestly, to take a 2-month break from another book series. I don't know.
So Laura had the wonderful idea to cover Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn. Yes. And I was on board because it's been a while since I've done like a heist book. And this was a romp on the Rompometer, which is awesome. So
this was a fun book.
It was so fun. So
because I was asking you, I was like, is this a YA book? Because I read it so fast that I immediately assumed like if you read it fast, Laura, it must be YA. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule.
No, I don't think that's a hard and fast rule. I said it's more like pulpy, like popcorn fiction because it's like fun and rompy and like super interesting and quick. Like, but there's so much action packed in 340 pages. Like it's ridiculous. So I was excited for this book. We have already talked to MJ Kuhn about it, guys,
which was amazing.
Be prepared for that. Oh my gosh, just matching energy for energy.
You and MJ are very much on the same level. I was like kind of like, it's one of those things where you're like almost shell-shocked because you like, talk to some of these people that you're like, oh, I just imagined that we were friends because I listen to you in my car all the time. It's like we're both there together. And so it's kind of weird to actually like have a conversation with MJ Kuhn because I'm a big fan of her podcast. So
and I had not heard a single episode of it. So I was just like, oh, you are fun and friendly. Yeah. I like you. And I think like Laura at one point was probably a little bit embarrassed about me because I was just like, oh, that sounds interesting. No, because I'm loud and annoying. But
I don't know what point that was, but maybe.
But maybe. And she makes no promises.
I'm not going to rule it out.
Laura's just annoyed with me so often.
But I don't remember.
But Laura, before we get into it, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, so I got back on my 12 challenge because at the beginning of the year, I was doing really good, like reading one book each month from when I say 12 challenge, for those of you that are not on Bookstagram, there's a thing that happens usually at the end of every year where people are like, recommend 12 books for me to read in the coming year. And so I did that and I had 12 books recommended to me. And the beginning of this year, I did really well through about June, I think, where I read one book per month. And then July through September, I didn't do the greatest staying on top of it. But we started to get a little more free time for reading, Hannah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back on my 12 challenge. And I decided to pick up the book that was recommended to me by our friend Dylan over at FTF Podcast. He will be looking for a mention of his name in the show notes. So Dylan, it's there.
He's here today. Hi, Dylan.
Hello, Dylan. But I picked up the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Let me just say, Dylan, you won the 12 challenge. Like, I don't know that there's winners or losers to this, but you won because this is easily the best book that I've been recommended. And the 5th season is a fantastic book. Like, Hannah, I am not exaggerating. Well, I am exaggerating a little bit because I'm kind of a dramatic reader where I get like, I really am. You know how some people like laugh out loud when they're watching TV or cry? I'm that person with books where I will cry during a book. I like just gushing tears. I will laugh out loud. When I was reading this book, I had so many emotions. Like I was audibly gasping at points because I was shocked. I literally remember like laying in bed reading and going because something happened that I didn't expect. But the 5th season is this absolutely beautiful, wonderful, interesting fantasy book about this world called the Stillness that exists. And within the Stillness, there are people who have magical abilities, and they're called origins. And they are unfortunately considered less than human in certain situations, and not in certain situations. They are considered less than human and feared a lot of times, but at the same time, their magic within the Stillness is kind of manipulated. Not kind of, it is manipulated. Their magic is manipulated. They are controlled by a group of people called the Guardians. We don't necessarily know too much about origins or Guardians. There's not a lot of questions asked in general about things that are happening in terms of the magic within this world. But this is a multi-POV story. We have interesting characters. We have all sorts of things happening. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of questions and a lot of mystery. And it is a fantastic book. It's so fantastic that I picked up the sequel immediately. And I'm more than halfway through it. It's
Oh, wow.
The Obelisk Gate is equally as good and equally interesting. Hannah, I was so tempted to just be like, can we just scrap all the ideas that we put together?
We scrap the fact that we've already done our announcement?
Planned out our year next year for like what books we're going to be covering. I was so tempted to be like, let's just scrap it and cover the 5th season because Hannah, it's so good. And getting back a little bit into like the plot like of the 5th season, that every couple centuries or so often there's basically an apocalyptic type event that occurs, and it's a little unsure as to what brings about these apocalyptic events, which are called a 5th season. But there's different ones. There's like a boiling season, and then there's like, oh yeah, you remember that season where like everything iced over? Remember that season where it was just like a ton of lava? But huge climactic events, not climactic, climate events. I can't talk today.
You're fine.
But yeah, the 5th season was absolutely fantastic. The Obelisk Gate is equally as good, and I'm loving it. And I'll probably just dive right into the Stone Sky immediately after. So maybe next week I'll be reading that one. But I was so tempted, Hannah, to just be like, let's throw out what we had planned and cover the Broken Earth trilogy. And
here's the thing, I'm obsessed with that trilogy, even though I haven't read it yet. Like Hannah has certain hyperfixation books where like I'm so obsessed with them, but then I don't read them.
And it's really like almost like I get to on the podcast because I want to get your reactions now after me reading this. I'm like so tempted to just be like, Hannah, can you please wait? Because I just want to get the podcast reaction.
Fine, I will wait until we do it on the podcast. Guys, I'm making that promise right now. My first NK Jemisin might be the city. I hate to
do that to you because it's so good, but I just really want to get those reactions out of you, and I think that would be so much fun. And I almost feel a little bad that I didn't wait for the podcast to cover it because we've planned on covering this, talked about it for years, honestly.
Yeah.
And
Laura thought I was going to do, I think when we did like our friends pitching seasons, Laura was like, oh, Hannah's gonna pitch NK Jemisin because like she's so obsessed with her and she just wants to do all of her stuff. You had mentioned it several times and
I was like, cool.
I know.
And then you're like, I don't think I'm gonna pitch her for this. And I was like, just do it. And so then you did, but I was like, oh, I'm kind of almost even a little upset with myself that I went ahead and read it because I was like, this would have made for such excellent content to just like have us both like within the emotions of this.
Of Laura. We could just make that's your first Laura does the plot breakdowns.
Maybe these will be interesting episodes if we do it that way. But Hannah, I'm so excited for you to read it, but also I really want this to be something where it's like we're getting your first reaction to it on the podcast.
I promise you guys, Hannah swears on her right hand that I will not read.
Oh my gosh.
The Broken Earth trilogy and until we cover it on the podcast. I can't do it. I have to read all the other hundreds of books in my library. Damn it.
I mean, there's probably plenty of reading material out there that you can maybe find something else.
I could actually start reading my 12.
You can get in your 12 challenge. But yeah, this is just a fantastic couple of books. And I've been talking about them a lot, and it's one of those things where I'm sure it's going to be a book that I'm going to start, or a book series, honestly, that I'm going to start pushing on everyone that I know. My husband's probably sick of me mentioning it to him. And it's just so good. Dylan, you won the 12 challenge. You won. I already know you did. I have a few more books to read, but you already won. I don't think that there are going to be any that are this good. It's
good.
just wonderfully beautiful, complicated. I I love the questioning of humanity. I love the complex world building and the political system. I love it all. N.K. Jemisin is a genius, and this might be the best book I've read all year. Like,
oh, good.
It might be.
That's after the Jade War, like Jade Legacy, like
Hannah,
all of those.
You don't
beat
know.
Those.
You're in the dark, Hannah. You don't know.
That's amazing. I can't believe it. I
You
can't
still
believe
have the
it.
veil over your eyes.
I haven't seen The Fifth Element. Okay, until you
have not experienced the 5th season yet.
But the
it's
5th season,
something that has to be experienced, unfortunately.
Fair
I've read
enough.
so many good books this year. I hate to even call it, but because I loved Jade Legacy. I loved Children of Time. I loved A Psalm for the Wild Belt. There's so many books that I read this year that I could easily just be like, this is my new favorite book. Like, I've said multiple times, I want to make my personality about A Psalm for the Wild Belt by Becky Chambers, because that book was so comforting to me at a time when I needed it most. And so many of these other books I've just read and I'm like, these are fantastic. And I'm so glad that like every year I continue to read more and more books where I'm just like, this is a new favorite. And I love having that experience. But I think at this moment in time, if I'm going to make a prediction for our end of the year episode, what book I'm going to say is my favorite, it's going to be one of these 3 from this trilogy. I'm calling it. I'm calling it now.
That's awesome. That's so great. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But Hannah, what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Bringing it back to Laura's entire personality for this episode,
Yay!
I read A Psalm for the Wild Belt by Becky Chambers, a monk and robot's tale. I got it randomly because I was doing Small September last month, and I only read 3 books for Small September, and then the rest were big books. But you know, it was a no rules thing. I wasn't going to hold myself to it. Small September is just a fun reset where I focus on smaller books because I feel like you and I are people who always kind of pick up big books or mid to big books.
Not me. I tend to not.
Well, you do a lot of like random stuff. You're a little bit more all over the place.
I'm
but a
all
lot
over
of times
the place.
I will buy shorter novels and then I'll never read them. And so I had picked it up from the library. This is my second time picking it up. The first time I didn't finish it. And it is adorable. It's everything Laura promised it would be. I love it so much. I thought the discussions in it were beautiful. I loved the storytelling and the idea of like robots kind of leaving society and society just respecting their decision.
Yeah.
And I love the discussion of how like they kind of built a new world around cities and around like more beneficial things to like work within nature. I think that that's a story that we all need to hear nowadays because I feel like some of us are too stuck in our ways when it comes to environmental issues. And I also just I love sibling I'm so sorry I forgot their name. Sibling decks. I thought they were amazing. I love their little conversations with the robot. I thought they were just so cute. It was just a really good time. It had a lot of like just good mindset stuff, a lot of stuff that I feel like I've tried to like emulate my life on, about like reflection and about like being in the moment and being one with nature or just being okay with yourself. And I really loved that like sibling decks had this like need to fulfill something. And even when or even when they had a very fulfilled life, they would have moments of like, okay, it's fulfilling, but like, why don't I feel fulfilled? And I think that that is a wonderful thing to think about. So I get why Laura loves it so much. I think it's a beautiful little novel. I read it in less than 24 hours because it was just that good, and I stayed up late reading it. It's adorable. It's so happy. The robot in it is hilarious.
Mosscap.
Mosscap. I also love the discussion of like immortality in the book. I think that that's also very wonderful. Because who wants to be immortal? Seems like a big old bummer. So everyone go read that book because it's adorable and has so many good messages in
It's
it.
like the
And
ultimate comfort book, honestly. I think that for me, that was something that I just really appreciated about that book was that it was comforting in a way that I needed it, where it has all these affirmations in it, like, you know what, you're doing okay. You're doing fine. You're where you need to be. You're trying. You're continually moving forward. Like you're doing all right. Even if you're not continually moving forward,
yeah,
you're doing okay. And
that's
the I also loved about the book the same thing that you mentioned, which I feel like is often a theme within science fiction that I love, but the blending of nature and science in this is so much more tangible than it is in other sci-fi books, where in other sci-fi books we'll get like creatures or different like unique climates that we've never seen before or like interesting wave patterns or something like that. But in this, it's very much our world that
yeah.
has been kind of like we're looking at our world in the future of what could happen and how we've been able to hopefully still maintain a relationship with nature. And I'm someone who's very drawn to nature and animals, and I just loved everything about that book.
This book also really spoke to me because it's something I've been thinking about lately, which is something I struggled with a lot when I was a lawyer and I was like in deep emotional, like I hate my job, I hate this life. And there were moments where like I was in therapy a lot and my therapist had a lot of like, you're exactly where you need to be right now. And that does not mean that you will always be in this place, but that means like right now there's freedom and accepting that this is just
Yep.
a moment in time. And I also feel like Sibling Dex has moments of that where like they go out, they want to have this epiphany, and then like they can't. And they have to like teach themselves how to live in a world that's different than what they expected and shift perspectives. And then they shift perspectives again, which I also loved in the short book, because a lot of times people think that they're headed towards some kind of end of like, I'm happy now. And like life is not stagnant, or like life has there's like your life is a long moment, but like there are different moments in it and nothing is consistent and everything can change as time goes on. So like who you are right now is probably not who you're going to be in 5 years,
Right.
even though like you are fundamentally still yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, as someone who kind of has gone through a lot of her harder moments and I'm on the other side, I feel like I appreciate the struggles of my past self kind of going through all of that. I felt the same with Sibling Dex. I felt a very strong connection to them. So very good. And then for another book for spooky season, guys, I listened to Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina,
Okay.
which is a fiction thriller. I would say it's a little bit less horror than some of my others. It is another Indigenous
I was
author.
just going to ask if this was an Indigenous author because you
Yeah,
love
because I've just
spooky
been
books by
seeking them out.
Indigenous authors.
I just really like them. It's just my new like they're great audiobooks. Like I've been listening to a ton of them through audio, which is also awesome because like Indigenous people often told stories through spoken word.
Yeah,
Uh
it was Travis Baldree, I believe that I heard. Maybe he told us this, but
maybe.
I believe he was the one that I remember saying like, "Oh yeah, this was the original like audiobook was the original format. Like this is how
Yeah.
people told stories."
And so I have just been enjoying all of those. And just spoken word horror also kind of hits different than like reading it. I
Sure.
feel like sometimes I can like it just has a level of like this is storytelling and this isn't
Yeah.
as scary to me. But this is about a young native girl named Anna Horn. This is like back in I would say it takes place in the early 2000s. And she lives on an Indian reservation with her family, and there was recently a casino put on the reservation, and she is employed as a maid there. And one of the people there, who probably is into drugs, has her working on the 8th floor for him for some specifically shady deals. And she doesn't really care about it too much. And some weird things happen to her until her sister goes missing. And she thinks that he might be involved. And then she's racing to find her sister. It's a very interesting story. It's told a lot like in the present and then in the past, where like her sister is missing, and then in the past to kind of see what the setup was in some of the turmoil her sister has been going through. This book has a lot of hard stuff in it. Anna is an androgynous person who in the early 2000s was bullied maliciously for being an androgynous person, for being an androgynous indigenous person. She and her sister go to the white public school, and they are one of 3 indigenous students at the school. So Anna is horribly bullied. Her sister wants nothing more than to be popular. And so she is willing to do some things to make herself more popular, to make herself be like put in place of the popular crowd. And Anna is like often telling her sister that she shouldn't be doing something, and her sister goes against her. So it's a very dark story. It's very interesting. And then there are some horror elements because Anna is very scared of a story she once heard of an old indigenous person's burial ground being disturbed, and its head fell off and it rolls around trying to eat people. What I do love about this story is like it is almost something, it's something that seems like silly to an adult, like to be afraid of a rolling head coming to eat you. But like the reason I'm
that
afraid
doesn't
of ghosts,
seem that
it's not fun
unreasonable
like,
to me, but
like it's one of those things where it's like all she has to do is like get to higher ground where the head can't reach her, you know. And I'm always like, there's something weird about being scared of that, you know. But like I'm afraid of ghosts because I was told a ghost story when I was 5. And so like anytime like ghosts kind of come up, it freaks me out to the point where I'm a mess. And so the author does a really good job of like kind of weaving that in where it's like, yeah, she's terrified because she was a child when she heard this very traumatic story. And so like she has moments where she's like, I know this isn't real. I know this isn't real, but also I have to run because what if it gets me? And I was like, oh yeah, I have been that person before. And so I thought it was really good. I thought it played with a lot of different things. The book talks a little bit about like what it means to be an androgynous person or even non-binary. In the indigenous community, which I thought was wonderful because like Anna feels very isolated and her grandma tells stories about how that is a very accepted type of person in their community. And I thought that was beautiful. And there's just like certain beautiful things. I will say the ending almost wrecked me. I kind of wish it had gone a certain way that it didn't. But like it was very good. I really like this book. It was really long. So like if you're not in the mood for kind of a long thriller mystery, maybe not the best one. I don't think it's my favorite of all the ones I've listened to, but it was good and it was enjoyable, and I did end up giving it 5 stars even though the ending made me lose a little bit of love. But yeah, so those are 2 books that I've been reading, watching, and or enjoying. And
I maybe need to check out some of these thrillers or mysteries that you're bringing up, because as you know, I have not been as enthralled with thrillers as of late, but it sounds like a lot of these are pretty good. So
yeah, I really like them. And I think sometimes like, I don't know, it's just
seeking out the right stuff that you actually are into and like.
Yeah. And that's where like, I really think you should read Jackal because I think you would like that one. It's a pretty wild ride, or White Horse, like we said, the Erica T. Worth one. And guys, spooky season's almost over, so everyone should be looking these up. Some of my
unless you just are always about
unless you're always about it.
Creepy.
I would say those are 2 of my all-time favorites so far of the spooky season ones. Would definitely be White Horse. The Only Good Indians was also amazing, and Jackal, which is written by a Black author, but still so amazing. And I'm less good about reading my 12 by 12 authors challenge. I am reading one of them right now, but I've only finished 2. So
I think I've finished 7 now, so I've got 5 to go.
Well, brag much, Laura.
Hannah, you read at a much faster pace than me because you were like in December, like, I guess I'm gonna read my 12 challenge now. I'm like, okay,
I didn't finish my 12 challenge.
I didn't know if you finished it or not, but
I definitely didn't finish.
But I was like, okay, there's no way that I could do that.
I think I tried, and I was just like, my problem is I'm always like, yeah, I'll totally read all these books that people tell me to read. And then like my youngest sibling comes out and I'm like, well, do I have to do something just because other people told me to do it? I don't think so.
I found that I do the best, honestly, when I just pick, quote unquote, do the best. I read the most when I can just like get into whatever I want and
Yeah.
just like kind of fly all over the place, because I looked back a few months on my story graph and I was like, oh my gosh, I read a ton of books. And I noticed that I was like, oh, well, I read all of that Witch Hat Atelier. And I feel like once I kind of get into a swing of like reading stuff that I'm really enjoying, then it's just so easy to just like pick up the next one and pick up the next one and pick up the next one and pick up the next one.
I have read a total of 8 of my 12 challenge,
Oh.
but I believe 3 of them were from this year. Like
You're doing great
I
then.
done like, but that was from last year. Like that was last year's
12
list.
challenge.
Last year's list, I did 8 of them. And some of them I like still want to read, but there's others that I'm just like, yeah, I just didn't feel like reading those books, so I just didn't. So I'm definitely
I have a couple on hold at the library that are like months out that I'm like, okay, well, they might not even happen because they're on hold for so long that, oh well, if it doesn't happen, I'm not like gonna cry my eyes out over this, because it's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of fun.
It is fun. I like doing it. I like seeing if I'm going to read those, and like it's fun to go back to.
It's also kind of interesting just to see like what books people recommend, because I feel like it says a lot about their personality, and it also makes me like question a little more like what I'm recommending to people, because if I'm thinking this about like, oh, what does this say about them that they recommended this book? I need to be like thinking people will think that's what this says about you when you recommend a book, and I often recommend books I don't like to people, so
I think that just
like
means
to get a
you're
reaction.
Funny. Yeah, I think it just means you're funny. Except you recommended Lumberjanes to me, and I know that you love that one.
I
Friendship
love
to the
those.
max.
I love those.
I just got it out from Hoopla. I was like, oh yeah, 12 for 12. I should just get that one. So
one that I was recommending last year a lot was Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead.
You also recommended that to me. I'm on a wait list for the audiobook at the library because I want to do that via audiobook.
Oh, I'll be curious how the audiobook is for that.
I know. A lot of people said they really loved the book and they thought it might be very good for audios. And she has like very like sarcastic narration. So I'm interested.
I've seen so many mixed reviews on that book specifically that it makes me nervous anytime I like go on Instagram and I see somebody has posted the picture of that book. I'm like, are they gonna hate it? Because otherwise I might cry.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, but should we dive in?
Yes.
Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn. Are you guys ready for a romp of swashbucklers, smugglers, and more, and a butcher, and a severed finger that the butchered finger that she plays with.
Yeah, that's gross.
I actually think it's very funny because I never get really like when I'm told someone's doing something in a book like that, I'm never too grossed out. I always just think it's funny when she's like playing with it, like touching Tristan's head. I'm like, oh, that's amusing.
This book was like very easy to picture everything that was happening. Sometimes it's not easy to do that with books, but this one is very much a book where it's like the writing is very much
spot on.
It's spot on. It's telling you exactly what's happening and you can visualize it so easily.
So we meet Raya in chapter 1 as she's breaking into like a castle/fortress. She's climbing the walls and suddenly smells danger, and she chews on a lemon balm, she calls it, to cover her scent. She overhears some guards talking. A man is hitting on the woman, because of course he is, and he's like, "I heard you're an easy lay," pretty much. Like, and the woman is like, "Get away!"
And I was also like, "Get away from her now!"
I know, like, and the woman has a shocking braid, which same. Raya clocks that they will get in trouble for like kind of coming in and slipping in and getting this done, but she doesn't really, but she has a job to do. She goes into the room and she finds Afrain Althea, who is the queen's nephew. She wakes him up and she tells him that he stole from Callum Clem. He has huge gambling debts, and he's like, "I'll totally pay you back." And she's like, "Yes, but that cannot forgive you for the fact that he called a raid on one of Clem's establishments."
like, "I'll totally pay you back." What's the status of this actually?
Yeah. And she's like, "You called in a raid because you didn't want to pay your debt. So like now you have to pay more." And this, like, in this moment, it is revealed that Raya is called the Butcher of Kerouac, who is Callum Clem's right-hand person, except everyone's like, Callum Clem hates right-handed people. Like, he doesn't want one. He will kill her one day.
He's basically just, like, set up to be this extremely untrustworthy person. Like, yeah, he's definitely somebody you want on your side, but you can never trust him.
And he will murder you one day. She ends up, like we said, cutting off Ephraim's finger. And before she leaves, she searches his body and she finds a coin from the Kestrel Skulls, which is a rival gang, and it means that he owes them or they owe him
They
a
owe him a
favor.
favor. It's
And
kind of
she's
like
like, well,
here,
that's not going
cash
to be
this
good.
in.
And then suddenly the door opens and Raya like freezes like a cat. An adept walks in. Now, adept are people who have powers. So usually it's kinetic or it's sensors who can sense like bad intentions or danger or other
I
things.
feel like the kinetics also have a little bit of the sensor abilities too, from
That's
what I
true.
was picking up on reading.
You
Because
kind of want to be a kinetic. That's
yeah, the
kind of the
kinetics
vibe I
also,
got.
yeah, I got that vibe too. It was like kinetics are superior in my mind because they also seem to have like a little more skill when it comes to battle and
Hannah's
fighting
joke
and
of the
everything.
year. The sensors are just Ken. And they're
Yeah,
just Ken.
kind of.
And most of the kinetics or sensors are bald, and they have a
Like a
tattoo
brand.
on their head, a brand on their head to tell you what type of adept powers they have. And a lot of them have nothing going on behind the eyes. They're pretty
Mhm.
much like in a trance. They just do their job. That's all they can do. But the sensor like sees Raya and it like immediately leaves to sound the alarm, and she runs away and escapes into the night. And so then we cut over to Nash, who is a smuggler who also works for Callum Clem. There will be a theme here.
Wait a minute.
Wait a
Am I picking
second.
up on something? I actually really like this because this is multiple POV. We switch around from each chapter, and there is a little overlap in some of the chapters where you're like, oh, well, this just happened in this one. I do enjoy the switching around, even though it's like very quick.
I'm always here for it. Nash is a smuggler, and she runs the gang. And Clem runs the gang, the Saints. Like that's what they're called. She is meeting with a merchant who has fealty towards Clem and owes him money, but doesn't want to pay him. He brings up the raid, and he kind of is like, "You guys are kind of on the outs and outs. You guys are less powerful. You don't have as many people after those needle guards came and got you," which is the funniest thing to call a knight is a needle guard.
I like it because they likely have like the small skinny swords.
And it just makes them not very scary and not very serious.
It just really deflates any kind of.
It's like a sneeze guard on a salad like bar. You're just like, oh, okay, I guess.
That's gross.
Yeah, that's gross. But he brings in like a kinetic adept to like intimidate Nash. And we do find out in this moment that Nash has a sister who was an adept. And the sister was given a name which was seen as silly because you should never name a child before their first year, when the guild master
can still
claim an adept for himself. And like all of the adepts are taken by the guild master, trained,
who is an adept himself.
Yes, who is an adept himself. And then they're like kind of sold to the highest bidder, or they serve the guild master. That's pretty much the only thing adepts can do.
Right.
So there is a moment where Nash checks to see if this adept is her sister, but it isn't. The merchant does try to strong arm Nash because Clem's crew is like having the setback. And then she kind of is just like, yeah, no, you're gonna pay me. Like, this isn't happening. This is ridiculous. Like, you can speak to Clem and his butcher if you need to. So he does end up paying her. As she is heading back towards her ship, she sees the leader of the Harpies, Harrow Finn, who is the Harpies are a rival crew, and they're speaking to the second in command of another rival crew, and like kind of the superiorist of the crews besides Cal and Clem. The Kestrel Crowns. So she's like, ooh, something is afoot. And I'm just like, you two idiots couldn't have done this behind closed doors. Why are you like, and she's like, well, it's about 2 a.m. And I'm like, it's still not the smartest thing you two should be doing. I feel like
sometimes people get so comfortable that they're willing to do stupid things like that. And that's kind of what I assumed that was, where it was just like, yeah, you're being a little too.
I know. I was just like, guys, like read the room a little bit. Like, get in a room, please. But anyway, the second in command, Rafferty, is paying the Harpies for something. Nash considers not telling Clem because she'd love to get away from all this. She's like, I'd like to get on my ship and leave. And then she's like, no, I gotta go tell him. Then we shift on over to Tristan, who also works for Clem. Shocking.
The whole crew's getting back together.
He is a cheat at cards. And he has some debts to pay off. Raya comes and she sees him, and again she plays with her chopped off finger, just like pets his pretty little face. And Tristan is horrified, even though he has all of the hots for Raya.
Oh yeah.
And then she shows him the coin that she found in Ephraim's office, and Tristan's like, Clem won't like this. This is a good time to tell the audience that we are on page 27 of the book. So we have already been introduced to 3 different characters.
So much is happening.
And so much has happened in this, way more than any prologue Robert Jordan has ever written. So,
oh my
gosh. Just so you know.
Maybe we remember when we talked about like who should rewrite the Wheel of Time? Maybe MJ Kuhn should do it. And it'd be like,
it would be
4 books.
We are back in Raya's POV as they go looking for Clem. They see him walking with someone who is wanting to renege on a promised payment, saying that the saints have had their comeuppance, Laura. And that person has a few adepts with him. The adepts often have like blank stares, and they appear to do just whatever their master tells them. And so Raya and Tristan kind of think that Clem might be in trouble and they should intervene.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly the turntables.
How the turntables.
How the turntables.
That's one of my favorites.
So Clem, one of the bodyguards who was there with this person, all of a sudden turns on the person and puts on a new brand on one of the adepts using Clem's blood. So we know blood is very important, and it makes the adepts now loyal to him. And this guy is like, I was not expecting this. Immediately, because they have no loyalty. Like they are just with who says that, who they say, like, I'm on the higher ground, Anakin.
Yeah, their servitude just switches immediately.
The kinetics end up killing the man. And then Clem is kind of like, hey, Ryan, Tristan, what are you guys doing over there? You weren't going to help me? And Ryan was like, you looked fine.
I don't need to step in. You got it.
He is upset to see the coin from Ephraim. And he's like, let's talk about this in private, because Clem is smarter than the other 2 people and does me in private.
I feel like Clem is just like very much the sneaky person that is
he's
like
just someone who's just like standing there, like, twiddling his fingers and going, Nash is upstairs in Clem's room. She and Raya are not fans of one another. It's kind of noted that Nash has worked for Clem for over a decade, which is a pretty long time. But the rumors are like, how she got that job? She slept with him.
I know, and everyone mentions it to the point where I'm just like, okay, did anyone think to ask? Like, did somebody ask her, like, hey, are you guys like in a sexual relationship? And no one does, and she's just like, why
or also
assume that? Like, that's
why is it anyone's business?
It's
like
not.
They're 2 adults. Like, who
not.
cares?
It's not anyone's business. My thing is, it's just brought up several times to the point where I'm like, if everyone's going to just speculate about this so much, it seems like Nash would be pretty willing to just answer, like, nope, this isn't happening.
I know. But anyway, they kind of like leave the room, and then Clem walks in with Ivan Riskoye, who is kind of like a chameleon of sorts. He like is able to shift his appearance really well, take on different affects. And he is also very good at like forgery. And so he looks at the coin and he's like, well, this is genuine. And then they think the nephew was in on it with the crowns to call in the Needle Guard and ruin the reputation of the saints. And the crowns are led by Wyatt Asher, who was Clem's old mentor until Clem kind of double-crossed him. And Clem is kind of like, well, I'm going to ruin them all for what they did to me. We cut on over to Tristan's POV. He's out spying on the crowns and a fake beard. There are posts up about Raya.
He didn't get the memo from Ivan, like how to up your disguise.
He's just walking around with a fake beard being like, I'm Tristan. I love Raya.
You idiot.
And he's just thinking about how much money he owes Clem. And he's also like pulling down random like drawings of Raya that are up and around, being like the Butcher of Carowin. He hears things about like people are talking about going to the betting halls, which are often owned by the crowns, and how they're not open that night. And he thinks he spots a shadow warden, and he does panic and he runs away because he doesn't want to be caught by the shadow wardens. File that away for later. He says that if he's caught, his gambling debts are the least of his problems. They run into him, but they don't appear to know who he is. Instead, they just hand him a message for Asher. They're like, could you give this to him? You look creepy.
Which it made me wonder, like, do some of these people like have some kind of symbol on them? Maybe I missed that they have some kind of symbol that
I
like
think that
shows
a
their
lot of times they
allegiance.
have like different, yeah, they usually have like marks on them that show their
Okay.
allegiance. So he probably was wearing like a fake one, and they were like, "Oh, your allegiance is to the crowns."
Okay,
Good.
because I was kind of wondering because that happened, and I think there's another instance where something happens where
Yeah.
they just like automatically assume that so and so is with this person. I'm like, how would you know?
A lot is dealt with branding. So usually like there's a mark on their arm to
Okay.
say like I showed it off to them. And like he says at one point, like he has to cover up his saint's mark so that no one
Okay,
knows who he's loyal to.
gotcha.
Then we kind of go on over to Nash. Ivan is putting on a disguise for her because he likes her better than Tristan. And they're going to the fighting pits for recon. The fights are about to begin on Crown territory, but Wyatt Asher isn't there. And Nash is like, poor sweet baby Angel is like, where is he? And Ivan is like, yeah, he's not going to show up until like the final battle. He doesn't give a shit about
He
that.
does not care.
Like he will not be here for a while. We find out that these fighting pits are usually for adept people. They've kind
Which
of fight
basically they're forced into it. They don't
Mhm.
get a choice. They're forced into it. People use that basically as just like a disgusting form of entertainment.
And Nash begins to panic at the thought of seeing her sister there. They talk about Clem's soft spot for Nash and the rumors, and she kind of is like, "Yeah, I really don't want to talk about my sex life with you, Ivan. Like, could you please like mind your own business? And why do people think this? Like, it's very strange."
She has like this internal thought of like, everyone thinks this, but it's not true. I don't know why
No.
this keeps happening.
And then they do figure out an address where things are going down, and Ivan gets into a fight to get them kicked out. We go to Raya's POV. Ivan does a handoff of the address. She breaks into the meeting place. Asher is there with Ephraim. Ephraim wants to hire the crows to go after the crowns. I don't know why I said the
Crowns.
crows. Yes, the crowns to go after the guild master. So the person who holds
The big
all
bad.
the keys to the adapt, the big bad, Mr. Big Bad. And he says it's a politically sensitive maneuver. I love that he called it politically sensitive. He explains that Declan Day, who was a famous trader, who was an adept, and he ended a huge war between adepts and non-adepts and subdued his people and made them who they are today. He had a tool. It was a weapon, a quill that the guildmaster uses, and it lets the guildmaster know where every single adept is.
Mhm.
And Araya has a moment where she is like, "Oh my goodness, that is how the guildmaster tracks me down all of these
Mhm.
different times. I am going to get it, and I am going to save myself."
Yeah, because it's been kind of hinted at, but
Mhm.
Raya also has like adept powers of
Yes.
sorts because of reasons not known at this point. But she is wanted all over the place and she has to keep continually moving and running away from situations,
Mhm.
but she could never figure out why. And this is it.
This is it. And then we go to Ivan. He's talking about how long he has been with Kerouac. He's living his life. He's just like getting new stuff. And then all of a sudden, he gets a letter from his brother, who we find out is a revolutionary in a different land. And he's been imprisoned. He is going to be executed if Ivan cannot pay to get him out. He goes to a meeting with Clem, where he says that they are going to go after the quill. However, Raya has not told Clem what the quill is used for. She just says
she's keeping that part
tool.
secret for good reason.
But she does say the amount that that Ephraim was willing to pay the crowns to do this. Oh, and the crowns did turn Ephraim down because they're like, "Look, no money in the world is as good as being dead." Like, so she Clem is like, "No, we'll go after that. I will definitely do that." He's planning to have them go out on a ship to the Guildmaster's Island in time for the Guildmaster auction, where there's going to be a Guildmaster ball. No, I just like I just kept calling it the Guildmaster.
Guildmaster.
The Guildmaster's is his presence. And the Guildmaster auction is the one time a year where like certain adepts become of age and they are sold off to the highest bidder unless they're useful to the Guildmaster, and
then they can become like they become
disciples.
like personal bodyguards basically, and can maybe become the Guildmaster themselves.
And disciples are the only adepts who ever have like any agency or any thought. So it's interesting.
I also keep saying him, but I don't remember. Is Guildmaster
it's
him?
a man. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a man. He's a man. He has a beard. So Clem is going to bring Ivan, Nash, Raya, and Tristan. But I do love this. Tristan doesn't know that he's being brought along, but everyone's always like, but why is he here? He's just
They're
a
like,
cheat.
he's not that good at what he does.
he's
Okay,
not
I guess we'll bring him
kind of
along.
naive, and he's just obsessed with Raya, but I guess go off, King. Ivan thinks about the amount he could get for the weapon, and he thinks about how it could free his brother and how he could steal it and be long gone. And now we meet Evelyn. Evelyn does not work for Clem yet. She
No.
does by the end of this chapter.
Yes.
She is the needle guard from earlier in the book, and she got fired because Raya maimed the nephew. She's drunk. She's been kicked out of her father's home. She's been kicked out of the needle guard. She was like on track for becoming one of the youngest, like highest powered people. And now she is not.
Can you imagine being in her situation where she's like, you're fired because you screwed up one mistake over your sparkling career, and this person is a known terror to us because nobody can figure out where she's at or anything. Or they don't know it's a she at this point. Nobody can figure out where they're at or anything. And you make one mistake and you're out. And then after she makes that mistake, her father's like, you're out of this family as well. And it's okay. That seems extreme, but
extreme.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very strange. But so Callum Clem comes and he hires her, and he's like, look, if you work for me, I will give you the butcher. And she's like,
and then you can get back in the needle guard and get all your career aspirations back.
And she's like, that person ruined my life. Perfect deal. I won't fall in love with them. Tristan finds out about the job, and he's like, why would they want me here?
Even he questions it. Like, why am I involved?
But we do find out that he's definitely been to the island before. Like, he's having flashbacks. He sees like a king and queen there. And he finds out that they're going to be getting paid by the quote unquote Mad King Tulliver Shadowwood. It's noted that Tulliver has been yelling all over the place that the king in this land has kidnapped and murdered his eldest son, Jemisin Shadowwood, but there's actually no evidence. But some people think that Tulliver murdered his son himself.
Basically, just for political reasons to start a war.
To be able to start a war. Yeah. Clem is going to have the captain, Evelyn, who's just joined their crew, take Raya into the Needle Guard barracks to get information on the island and get like the floor plan. Tristan thinks of running away at this point. He's like, maybe I could get out of here. But then he's like, I'd have to leave Raya, though. I don't want to leave her. And Raya's like, I don't think about you.
There's some other connection here, too, that Tristan is like, I can't necessarily take off because I do owe some people some things.
So he's got a
little bit of a mysterious backstory.
And then as he's like leaving and thinking through his options, he gets a letter from the Crowns, and he realizes that they know who he is and they won't keep it quiet for free. We clown on over to Raya. She's going off on a side quest with Evelyn, who hates her. She's kind of mocking Evelyn the entire time. She's like, oh, did you fancy that man who was hitting on you when I got you kicked out of the Needle Guard? It's noted that Raya is wearing a name stone, which like in certain cultures shows like the mother's line and then the father's line on one side, but Raya only has her mother's line etched into it, and says like that would signify that she is a bastard. They go inside the belly of the beast, and Raya's like, this is actually pretty easy. And then in her head, she's like, actually, it's not. And I really could use this woman's help.
I love her confidence that she's just like, yeah, I totally got this. But it's all just like a facade. Like, okay, maybe I need.
But I
help.
also did you don't think that people notice I have powers, do you? They find the necessary maps, and it almost makes her claustrophobic looking at the island, thinking about being trapped there, thinking about being the fact that they're also in a basement right now. And she's like, there's no mode for escape. And suddenly she smells danger, and she's like, people are coming. What the hell is going on? And Evelyn is like, oh, so there's going to be a changing of the guard, and like 2 sensors are going to be here any minute. Did I mess up the timing?
Did I not tell you that?
Oh my God. And so Raya gives her the lemon bulb, and they are able to sneak away from the sensor.
And she's like, oh, so this is the trick. Okay. This is how you've done it all these years. And it's like,
but also Raya is like, but then Raya makes a joke, and Evelyn's like, I don't need your secrets. And it's like, actually, it sounds like you might.
You do. You do need them.
You do need her secrets to know how to find her in the future. No. But Raya keeps making jokes, and Evelyn is like, hey, do you realize when you chopped off that prince's fingers, you could have started a war? Because, like, there's a lot of political unrest. And Raya's like, that sounds like a whole lot of not my problem. Like, I am surviving. I'm doing fine. Evelyn says something about Raya not being safe, even with Clem, and Raya's thinking that she intends to sail without Clem because she can't trust him when they get to the Quill.
Yeah, Raya's kind of like, yeah, I already knew that. Don't tell me stuff I don't already know.
Then in the next chapter, she double crosses Clem
Yep.
immediately. So Nash is waiting for everyone to get off the boat, and like Clem kind of walked away. He left a bag there when all of a sudden there is a needle guard raid. She like tries to grab it and run. She's trying to get to the boat. She finds Ivan in the black market. They keep running. They're attacked again, and they're saved by Evelyn. And then they keep up running, and the butcher shows up with Tristan, and then it's like a whole heist of like, let's try to get out of the city. We cut on over to Raya's POV, and she's immediately regretting the decision to send the needle guards after Clem. She's like, this was a bad idea. I am so sorry. She's running on rooftops, concerned that they will have sent others after her that know about her quote unquote skills. But then she says the guild master will not want to let people know that you could steal powers. So we know that she was not born with adept skills.
Which is something that we didn't know previously, that you could be an adept without being born with the skill.
She is attacked by a disciple adept who again have their wits about them. They call her Grayson, and she's like, that is not my name. And she is able to fight them off. But she's definitely scared, and she uses her kinetic abilities with her many axes to hit them. And she keeps
Which it should be mentioned that she's called the Butcher because she has all these like little hatchets and axes that she throws, and she even like mentions early on like, is it normal to be attracted to weapons? Because I am. But I thought that was pretty funny.
It is very funny. She keeps using her kinetic energy. She's like, I didn't see that. And then like you'll see Nash and Evelyn both be like, I kind of saw something, but I don't know. We cut on over to Evelyn's POV. They get on the boat, and Nash is like, is Clem here? I need Clem, because Nash just trusts Clem with her whole soul for some reason. And her people on the ship are like, no, but a double cross is here. And she's like, what? And they now work for the Harpies. Finn, who is the leader of the Harpies, is there to tie them all up and get all of Clem's pets. They gas all the people on board and get off. And now they're scrambling. Evelyn wonders like how they're going to do this. She's like, is the mission scrapped? And they're like, no, we're just going to go steal another boat.
Just a little snag. We've got this.
Yes, they get to another boat. Evelyn is shocked because the butcher gets there, and there are disciples following after her. And there's quite a few. And she's like, wow, it's really weird to see one disciple. It's really weird to see quite a few. They all think that Raya is pretty much done for, but then the axe seems to move on its own and kill all of them. And Raya gets on the boat. She gets caught up to speed, and Evelyn is like, dude, does the guildmaster know that we're going after him? Because like he just sent a bunch of disciples. And Raya's like, no. He just wants me.
He just knows of my whereabouts.
And then she's like, okay, well, like, what if we get there and he recognizes you? And then she's like, then it's going to be a great distraction. And then they sail off without food or items or supplies.
Which it is mentioned, like, that they're hungry when they get there. Because I think it was about at this point where I'm, like, questioning, like, what kind of timeline are we on here? Like, how fast have things been happening? Because it seems like breakneck speed. But I guess we do get to a point where we start to question, like, where's the food? Because we're starving.
We're really hungry. And they also realize that Clem isn't there, and they feel a bit off kilter because he didn't tell any of them his plans. But Raya pushes them to make a decision on if they're staying or if they're going back. And she's like, if we're going back, we're going to get caught. Like, we don't know what happened to the Saints. We don't know who's in power. But here we can actually like make a break for it. And they know there's nothing there for them, so they just move forward. And then it's a lot of like, hey, what are we going to eat? And Nash was like, well, we'll just eat some meat. And they're like, that's really gross meat. And Raya's like,
it's rancid. Like, no, we're not eating it.
Like, it's just a little mold. And then Raya's like, I literally can't eat meat. And
no, I don't eat meat. Like that. No.
I know. And so then they're like, well, we could stop at that one port. And Nash is like, no, we're not going there. And Ivan's like, I really need some supplies. Can we please stop there? And Nash is like, fine. So they have to like make a little jaunt over to a slum-ridden town. and go find a bunch of things to like actually make a break for the ship and keep them moving forward. Nash had promised that she never really wanted to return there again because we know she had like a past there. And we
So we
also
don't
find
get a
out,
ton of Nash's background, really. And I wish we got a little more because I think Nash is the character that sticks out the least in my mind. And it's because we don't get quite as much there.
yeah, and she kind of talks like in this moment she has a nameplate, and it's carved with the ghosts of her ancestors in it, and they're kind of like, oh, do you really believe in that? And she's like, no, but my mom did. Like she was Brillish, which is like the people who believe in this. And then she says was, because we find out that her mother is gone, her father is gone. So, like, kind of all she has left is the sister that she never knew. And she doesn't really know how she feels about the sister because she was an adept. And Nash, like, a lot of these people use the term it's for the adept because they don't see a lot of personality in them. Raya does, but
They
she's
don't
kind of the
see
only
them as
one.
human, is the thing,
Yeah,
which is why they call them it's.
right. And so she has a lot of mixed feelings about that. But then we also have like Nash kind of often thinking like they need Callum Clem, like he's the one who knows what they're doing. And yeah, so they keep on going, and then there's like a lot of like them at sea, them playing games with Tristan, and like Evelyn not realizing all of them are huge cheats where she's
Yeah, they're
like
playing these games and they're all cheating. And Evelyn is playing exactly by the rules and just cannot figure out why everyone keeps winning and how they have extra cards and everything. You quit being the Captain America in Avengers.
And so they keep kind of it's a lot of them going back and forth of like, what do we do? How do we like break into the guild master? Like, where does he keep this quill?
Well, because Cal was the one with the plan, and now that
Clem.
Callum Clun
Callum. Yeah, sorry.
Was the one with the plan, and so now that he's not there, they're all just trying to kind of like lay this all out and what's going to happen.
Right. And so they're just trying to find something, and they're like looking over the maps. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get on. Like they kind of know that like they got these like black beads while they were over on the slum-ridden island. So they have some kind of idea. And then Raya is having these flashbacks to being like tethered to a wall, and an old man like saying like an adept gets it from the blood, and that's how they get it. And she's just having a really hard time. And then she realizes that the best place to hide something is in plain sight, and she realizes that she knows exactly where it's going to be. And she says the quill will be on top of the bell tower because it's like over the entire thing, and the guild master is just that confident in his own actions that they're going to be able to do that. And so yeah, they keep on traveling. And we have like a little bit moments, like we have moments with Tristan and Raya where they're like, you're showing that they are friends. And like
this is
Raya
definitely a situation where we have already talked to the author, but MJ mentioned that she liked to kind of mix it up with different characters, and this is definitely a lot of flavors of that where we're getting the different character pairings.
Right. And she kind of points out that like Callum Clem doesn't play fair, and Tristan's like trying to repay his debts fairly. And she's like, well, come on, like, wouldn't you want to make more money and get out of here if you could? So she's trying to kind of like smooth things over and get him to her side. And she's kind of just seeing what she can get away with.
Right.
And then they finally reach the Isle. And now they have to like all dress up in, or I guess we could kind of stop there because that's pretty much
good stopping point. Okay.
It's a good stopping point. So they reach the Isle. And we will cover the rest of the heist in the next chapter.
Next episode.
So
tune in next time.
Tune in next time, guys. Let us know if you've picked up this book, if you're following along, if you like this book, who your favorite character is.
Yes.
Like we
I'll
said,
be really curious who everyone's favorite character is because there's so many to choose from.
I know, and they're like they all have different flavors, so I do like that a lot. So,
Hannah, who's your favorite character so far?
So far, I'm a huge Raya fan. It's hard not to love Raya because she's so fun. But I also really like Ivan a lot of the times.
I do too. That was going to be my number 2 answer because I was like, Raya's probably my favorite, but then I think Ivan.
Yeah, because Ivan's just so like he gets it, and he does like
the backstory. I feel like I'm sympathizing with that.
Yeah, where he's like a revolutionary, or his
Mhm.
brother was. He just wants to get his brother out of prison. Who, like, his brother is working for the greater good, where he's like,
Right.
hey, down with the aristocracy. And he's like, yeah, that's good. Like, and I'm like, yeah, that is good. Thank you.
Mhm.
And so I like that he kind of like doesn't judge any of the other characters.
Yeah.
He seems pretty even keeled, and he and Nash seem to get along, but also he likes Raya. They have moments on the ship together.
Mhm.
And I love a man who's just like, yeah, I can do fashion. I can do
Yeah, I
accents. I
dig that
can
too.
do
I thought that
this.
he was kind of the coolest one out of like
Mhm.
the different abilities that they all have. I was like,
Yeah.
this is the coolest that he's like the Peter
Yeah,
Malark where he's doing all the
exactly. He's just
makeup and
making, he
everything.
just
That's amazing.
love to see it. So yeah, I think he's definitely my second. So guys, join us next week as we cover chapters 18 through the end, the epilogue, which is after chapter 39. So we're not quite like, I
Pretty
think the
close
ending
though. I
chapters.
mean,
Yeah, we're at 160 and there's 340 pages. So I think we're
okay.
stopping a little bit before halfway point, but also some of the halfway stuff, like it's just a lot of heisting. So, and we
Yeah.
all know how Hannah writes an action scene, which is not at all. But guys, make sure you're following along with us.
Yeah.
Make sure you're looking at ourpod.com, where we have our reading schedule up, where we will like announce what's going on for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
Make
A
sure
lot of
you're
it's up.
reviewing.
I mean, it's
A lot of
there.
it's up. Yeah. So just go look at it. Make sure that you're following us on Patreon. We're revamping it soon. We're going to add like a
Mhm.
dollar amount if you just want to support us. But we also have bonus episodes up there that are really fun if you
Yeah.
want to go listen to those, because we like them a lot. They're very funny. From watching a weird episode of Law and Order SVU
Yeah.
to other things. So make sure you're doing that, and make sure you're following us on all the social platforms at
All of them.
OWWR Pod, or email us at ourpod@gmail.com if you want to like rant about the fact that we're not making an announcement until what season 5 is until November. So you can
Until
yell at
next
us
month.
then. So yeah, do all of that. Make sure you are telling your friends about us. It's always a good way to get everyone involved.
Yeah, if you can
Especially
share anything about the podcast, that's really helpful, actually.
Mhm.
Just word of mouth, tell a friend, like, hey, this is a really fun podcast, or I liked this episode. Check it out.
Especially soon, because we are about to do a Wheel of Time breakdown. If SAG-AFTRA can
Mm.
just, if the executives can get their heads out of their
Get
butts
it
and
together, people.
just give them that 2% that you made everything fall apart over,
Hmm.
good for you. I hope you're proud. So yeah, make sure you're doing all of that, because we really want to release those Wheel of Time episodes and
Yeah.
just talk more about it. So thank you for
Thanks for being
listening.
here. We really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
being
If you
here.
could drop us a review or a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that'd be great.
That
But
would be.
thanks for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.